Welcome back to the Laser Podcast. This is our 8th episode, and we've really enjoyed covering some interesting topics with many more still to come. Today's no exception, as we will be discussing forest schools and outdoor learning. Forest schools, which have their roots in Scandinavian educational tradition, are an immersive outdoor education model devoted to the exploration of nature. They have really grown in popularity in recent years, and Vivette and I are joined by a special guest to dive deeper into the topic.
Yes, indeed. Hello, everyone, and thank you for tuning in. Joining us today is someone I've worked with in different ways over several years now, and I'm delighted to welcome Stavryna Petros-Kumi, who runs her own training and recruitment company. She's an EQA, she's a lead IQA and assessor, and also happens to know a thing or two about forest schools and outdoor learning. Welcome, Stavryna. We're so thrilled to have you here.
Oh, hello. Thank you for having me. I'm really happy to be here as well.
Stavryna, could you give us a brief overview of your background and your current professional commitments?
Oh, yes, of course, Vasco. Well, as Vivette mentioned, we have worked together for quite some time now. But I have my own training and recruitment company, which mainly focuses on early years and childcare sector. But it also reaches out to other sectors as well when required. How I fell into all of this really started from when I became a nursery manager quite some time ago now. And during my time as being a nursery manager, I had my staff there who had embarked upon apprenticeships. And it was really then when the assessor used to start coming in to do the observations for these members of staff that spiked my curiosity about how she felt about her role and how she got into her role. And she really loved it, to be honest, and thought that it was something that I could do. And from there, I kind of thought, well, that would be a next sort of challenge for me, moving on from being a nursery manager and to further my own career as well. So I joined a training provider as an unqualified assessor at the time, and they trained me up whilst I worked for them. At the time, to be honest, I really didn't quite enjoy the role. I'm not sure. I think I kind of missed the children in the nursery, as I missed having that contact with the staff and supporting my team. So I found myself coming back into nursery environments and took another role on as a manager shortly after qualifying as an assessor, funnily enough. But the nursery group I moved to, they had a training department themselves. And if by chance, because I was already an assessor, an opportunity came up for me to join their training department, which was based in their head office. And they asked me if I would consider taking over from the current assessor, who was sadly retiring that year. So it was a little bit of a whirlwind for me. But I really at the time thought, oh my God, no, I don't want to go back into assessing. But I thought, right, let's give it another go. So it took a turn for the better for me, and I never looked back. I began to love my role, and I even then qualified as an IQA. But then after some years, a nursery group got sold and the training department wasn't needed anymore. So unfortunately, I was made redundant, but that was okay, because it was in that moment in time I thought, well, now would be a good chance to make it on my own. And that's when I started up my business and worked my way up from there. In the last 7 years, I've trained as an IAG, so giving information, advice and guidance. I've qualified with a QTLS, which is the Qualified Teaching, Learning and Skills status, and became an EQA just recently. So I'm also qualified, more importantly, for this subject in forest school training. And I must say, it's been a huge interest for many years in schools and settings. And it's been really one of our top qualifications that we deliver right now. And it's a real fun qualification to get into for those who are interested, more than you would imagine.
Oh, that's brilliant, Stavryna. I think it's fascinating. I just love being outside myself, as you know, and started off as a nursery manager just like you. And we work our way into different things, don't we? Right, so you're here mainly because the forest school side of it, and because you are the writer behind our new short course on forest schools and outdoor learning, which, by the way, has been in quite high demand. But what is it that first ignited your interest and passion for that particular area? Because we all specialise in something. Why did you go down forest school route?
Well, it's funny because it seems like everything I do in life I have to do twice before I actually get myself truly immersed into whatever it is that I was destined to do. For example, the assessing, I did that, tried it, thought I'd hated it and came back to it and loved it. So it was really strange. I swore I'd never do it again, but I did, and I truly did start to love it. So similar with the forest school, when I was a nursery manager many moons ago, that's when forest school started to be talked about. And at the time, I was working for the Hounslow Borough. Oh gosh, it must have been 2009, around then, 9 or 10. And I was invited by Hounslow to attend an introduction session for Forest School. And instantaneously, I thought, no way, it's just not for me. I'm the most un-outdoorsy person. I don't like worms. I don't like getting muddy. So when you think Forest School, that's all you think about. Children putting worms in their mouth. I attended the introduction session and I felt not feeling too convinced about it still, but then nothing ever came of it. So I kind of thought I got away with it, to be honest. And I never really mentioned it to the nursery group and it just didn't seem to happen. Secretly, I guess I was pleased, but for the nursery group, it was something that probably they wanted to introduce to the nursery, but nothing came of it. And I think maybe Hounslow didn't push it. But again, some years later, I am now a trained assessor in IQA, and the subject of Forest School came up again. And I thought, oh God, here we go. But I was offered the opportunity to study the qualification this time, rather than just to learn about what is Forest School, which involved a weekend of camping. Oh, and I thought, oh my gosh, here we go. But lo and behold, I had the best time. I was able to learn, so much about not just what is Forest School, but the benefits that Forest School actually has and the impact it actually has on the children. Not just the children, actually, also the adults that are involved. We did some tasks, we cooked over a fire, and it was a real bonding session for everybody that attended. And I actually then understood the benefits of Forest Schools and, more importantly, how it impacts children's future. And I think that's where it all started for me.
That's awesome. So to someone new to the idea of Forest Schools, what would you say are some of the key benefits to this approach of learning?
Okay, so, nature alleviates the impact of life stress on children and it helps to deal with adversity. I actually learned how Forest School can increase a child's confidence and self-esteem through, explorations, problem solving, giving them opportunities and encourage them to learn how to assess and take appropriate risks. So we're not constantly just sitting there with the children saying, you can't climb a tree, you can't do this, you can't step in that lake there, or, if it was shallow enough. We're allowing them to take that risk and they're sort of teaching us. There's no teaching in Forest School. It's about experiences and allowing them to find and manage those risks themselves. Obviously, it's depending on the environment, of course. You're not just going to throw them into a completely dangerous and hazardous area. So all of this motivation can have a positive impact on attitude to learning in nurseries and schools. So Forest School invites all behaviours, it invites all physical abilities, ages, socio-economic groups. You don't have to have any money at all involved in letting children have experience of learning naturally in a forest. You just take them into the sort of environment and they will find so many different things to create so many different parts of their imagination. Rural and remote groups are included in these activities. All cultural groups can be part of it as well. So it's just so diverse.
And so inclusive, which I absolutely love. I also love the focus with Forest Schools, that it's all about learning. It's not about teaching. It's so very experiential and just the child gets out there and learns and shows you what they are learning and takes that with them. But what are some of the risks and hazards that people need to be aware of, Stavrina? If they're looking to deliver outdoor learning activities themselves in a woodland area, what do they have to think about?
Well, firstly, I need to say the Forest School is made as safe as reasonably possible, to be honest. You need to facilitate children's risk-taking, and this enables them to learn to respect the environment and move around comfortably within it while keeping themselves safe. Forest School leaders are trained to carry out rigorous risk assessments, as they would be if they're already in a childcare setting. And that allows the children to access all of the freedom that they could possibly have. So to do this, we have boundary bows that we introduce about risk taking and risk management, because as you know, the forest has no walls. So when taking the children into their Forest School sessions, we're allowing the children to decide how far out they would like to play. Giving them this important responsibility means that they have to conduct their own visual risk assessments. So we're not telling them, again, it's like you said, Vivette, it's not about teaching them, it's giving them the responsibility and the experience. Okay, children, you have a look around. Here's your boundary bows. Where are the hazards? What things do you think can harm us? And so we use red ribbons to mark the boundaries, tying them on the closest tree. For Forest Schools, some use laminated pictures of big red crosses. and that the children place down on the floor. And the reason why we use the colour red is because this is a natural danger colour. So again, the children can associate red cross with their danger. And the red ribbons are, again, a danger zone. If they're passing that danger zone, then they're coming in towards hazardous areas, basically. And the children are given the responsibility to place these around the forest as a barrier. They cannot go past this point, otherwise they're entering the danger zone. And again, we're not telling them, children, you can't go past here. We've given them that responsibility to put their boundary bows in the trees where they feel that is comfortable for them to go up to. And you'll be surprised, if children make their own rules, they do not break their rules. And it's a key thing to remember, because it's about putting the children in charge. And you will notice after about 2 weeks of the children consistently practicing this, the children begin to dob their friends into it. If they see them going over no, danger zone, and calling the teachers or calling their practitioners that are with them to let them know, they've crossed out of the danger zones. But just to go back to some of the things that you ask about, what sort of hazards, the children running off, being aware that children can run off. Some of them, if they've never been in that sort of environment before, it might take them some time to understand the rules, so that you've got to be aware of that. And obviously the journey to and from the setting, obviously you've got to be aware of the vehicles that they might come into contact with, maybe the public walking with their dogs who should be on leads, but some may not be. We just teach the children to turn their backs and cross their arms and call out danger and not give eye contact to the animal. And they've just got to stay very, very still until the dog and its owner has walked away. Things like hitting their heads on low branches or tripping over if there's a branch that's fallen. If you're coming across rivers or lakes or bridges, you just need to keep a lookout to make sure the bridge is not damaged in any way. They can't fall in. Stinging nettles, berries. We've got another rule. We say no picky, no licky. So you can't pick anything and you can't put anything in your mouth, because we don't know if they're poisonous or not. But we show them all pictures like flashcards so that they're all aware of some of the things that might be harmful to us. But initially you would keep them very close until they're a bit confident.
That's really good to know, Stavrina, and really fascinating and interesting. I especially like the idea that if children make their own rules, then they're a lot less likely to break them. So, can anyone deliver forest school sessions?
No. Firstly, you need to be over the age of 19 to be qualified as a forest school leader. You need to already hold a level 3 qualification. If, for example, you're a nursery practitioner or you're a teacher, you must be at least a level 3 qualified to then do the forest school leadership qualification. And then that's when you would complete your qualification along with first aid training. And some first aid courses you can actually have specific for forest school, which looks at things like how to deal with a forest school burn, or in case they ingest a berry and things like that. So that is key as well. You don't have to have a specific one that is designed around forest school. You can have the regular pediatric first aid, but if you are able to find one that incorporates or that can be adapted to meet the requirements of whatever the forest school sessions you may include, that is a bonus. But when taking children out of the forest school session, you must ensure that your ratios meet the requirements, not just suffice your outings policies, but also that your forest school activity policies are also being adhered to, which really need to be that you have your level 3 forest school leader with you at all times. You've got another level 3 member of staff with you. You must always have a first aider on site with you, and plus an additional member of staff to accommodate the ratios. So activities involving tools, as a done rule, it must always be conducted on a one-to-one basis. So again, your ratio for this would need to be considered quite carefully to allow you to do that.
Oh, thank you, Stavrina. That's really helpful. This has been a hot topic of late and a great introduction to those who are less familiar with forest schools, I think. We really appreciate you coming on board and sharing the information with our listeners, and hopefully they will continue to show an interest in the outdoors, particularly as we are now coming out of the pandemic.
Oh, yes. Thank you for inviting me, and I've enjoyed it. Thank you. It's my first podcast.
Thanks, Stavrina. Thank you. And to any of our listeners interested in undertaking some CPD on forest schools and outdoor learning, you can find a dedicated short course on this subject by visiting lasershortcourses.co.uk and browsing through the full course list. or for a direct link to this exact course, visit bit.ly/forest_schools.